Hello, everybody, and welcome back to BDubz DM21. This is our between the sessions, post session 1 and before session 2. This is sort of a cool, unique feature of a West Marches campaign in Dungeons and Dragons, and you'll probably hear me use the term West Marches quite a bit during our live streams, DM diaries, and things like that. And the reason why is because it's literally the style of game that we're playing, though it's a bit different than more traditional West Marches style games. So let me just briefly break down what that even is in the first place. So a West Marches D&D campaign typically involves a larger group. In our case, we have 12 players. Now, these 12 players will not be playing at the same time. No, they will be broken up into groups of 4 for their respective adventures. Some of the adventures, as is the case on Monday, will involve 6 players at a time. So it gives us opportunities to have varying group sizes, to go on different adventures, and to give the players more freedom about what it is that they're interested in and what they want to do. And so that way they're always doing stuff that they want to do. It's very sandboxy. West Marches games typically have side investigations or maybe different areas people want to go. Now, normally, the way West Marches is played is that the further you get from the epicenter, the more where you begin, right? The harder things get and the more varied your adventure can kind of become in terms of difficulty and sort of things that you'll discover. In our Strixhaven campaign, we're not necessarily doing that along the same vein, but rather what we're doing is a lot of solo sessions done in DMs off stream, where the player characters can go off and explore and do what they want to do, talk to who they want to talk to, engage with who they want to engage with. And our players took advantage of this in a way I did not expect them to. They were incredibly involved. They did a ton of investigation. They did a lot. And we're going to highlight and feature 3 of those stories today, which I'm super excited about. And hopefully you'll be super excited to hear about it. So session 1 ends with 3 of our adventuring parties going off, having an adventure. Something happened to them, whether it be fighting cheerleaders in the gymnasium. Yes, they did that. Dealing with a schoolyard bully who happened to have a kamikaze orc. Yeah, that was a thing that happened. Or fighting Flowey the Flower in a simulated reality. Yes, that happened as well. Our players had a great session 1, let me tell you. Now, where session 1 ended was they all joined the Extraordinary League of Students, or the Magnificent 12, or the Miraculous Dozen, whatever Kian decides to call them today. That seems to be the group that they joined. Excellent. And the cool thing about this is that it gives us a safe area. So in a traditional West Marches styled campaign, you tell them that, hey, the town where you guys all begin in is safe. There is nothing that will happen there. There is no adventure to be had in the town. You must venture forth elsewhere in order to find adventure. There's no adventure in the town. For us, in our West Marches approach, there is no adventure in your dorm. There is nothing that will happen in your dorm that will send you off onto an adventure. There's nothing to explore in your dorm. Your dorm is safe. You will not progress the story in your dorm. You will not. That is just a safe spot where you and your fellow adventurers can hang out, relax, talk with one another, and share information about your adventures. Neat. Yeah, it's cool. Okay? So, that being said, now that we've had the opportunity to kind of break down what happens, after sessions end, I do a recap of, hey guys, this is what kind of happened, and here's what's happening in the immediate aftermath. Now, I like to have sort of like a summary event. So the summary event that sort of summarizes where we left off of, right, was the pep rally. I told them all there was going to be a big pep rally that night at 8 in the gymnasium where they're going to get everybody excited for the school year, and there's going to be cheerleaders there and a party and all sorts of fun stuff. I told them that that was going to happen, that it would come up later. Well, it did. It came up in the post-session wrap-up, sort of our summary of, hey, you guys went off and did these adventures, and here's what happened. So let's go ahead and read that. So at the pep rally, having assembled the extraordinary league of students, in just the first day, Kian, satisfied with her work, departs the dormitories. She does, however, leave a few instructions behind for the new magnificent dozen. She points out the following for you all. The bookshelf cabinet of Draven Crift's notes, adventurers, and those of his allies. Then Draven's motto, no clue is too small, there is no such thing as coincidence. And finally, a reminder concerning the pep rally. After getting settled in, you each have a meal at your dorm and take the time to get to know one another. Certainly, some were more chatty than others, but at this point, it is assumed you know each other as more than just mere acquaintances. Very important that we tell them that, hey, you guys now know each other. You have met. I'm not saying you guys are necessarily friends, but there we go. Right here. After a meal, you all proceed to the main Strixhaven gymnasium for the pep rally. And so at this point, I'm giving them a wrap up. Like, here is what you guys, this is how you affected change in the world. Now look, if your players cannot change the world, if they cannot interact or engage with the world, they're going to get very upset. So I want to make sure that, hey guys, you went on this adventure, and here's how the pep rally scenario changed based on what you did. So in the case of Cadence, Derek, Phoebus, and Gothica, you'll be relieved to find out that the main squad, the cheer squad, arrived at the pep rally on time, and as cheerful as ever. Bree greeted you at the door with their promised payment, so they did get paid, and thanked you for saving the day. Bree personally invites Cadence and Derek to join the Mage Tower cheer squad. And I'm always asking, what do you want to do? Because I'm trying to lead them off into, oh, okay, yeah. Though we already knew they were going to join the cheer squad. I knew that before we even started playing, that they told me the extracurricular they wanted to do was the Mage Tower cheer squad. So I knew they were going to join it. But I like to leave that, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to engage with Bree? Do you want to talk with Bree in that moment? Maybe get some information. There was one of our players who was like, yeah, I do kind of want to talk, but it was sort of after the pep rally. It was kind of weird. And I'm like, well, you guys, I told Cadence we'll catch her up on what's going on with the cheer squad later. I had to stay away from plot hook bloat. So they will learn more about what happened with the cheer squad later. But I do like to leave that open. Like, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to investigate this further? Then the next thing, Goober, Kira, Ardberth, and Tayley Toley. This is the group that fought Durgle and his schoolyard bullies. This is what they learned. While at the pep rally, you find an incredibly injured Durgle there. He was all alone, with no friends at his side. Someone who witnessed the fight suggested you should go talk with him, so the four of you do. Durgle confesses that he didn't remember a thing. He didn't even remember waking up that morning. He went to bed the night before, excited to go to school, and woke up in the infirmary. With complete strangers he was told were his friends. Durgle tells you that he's all alone, confused, and isn't sure he's cut out for the school. What do you want to do? One of our players, Kira, sought out Durgle and had a conversation later on in the story. We'll cover that later. Then the next group, Belai, Turk, Archibald, and Brett. As the pep rally was coming to a close, Kyle approaches you with a grim look upon his face. This is the guy who is running the simulated world they were in. He thanks you for trying out the program and admits it wasn't a thesis for review this year, but one he put together a few years back as a year one student along with Kian. The funny thing is, he can't remember when or how Flowey the Flower got into the application, but noted he's been floating in and out of the different simulations relatively randomly. Kyle, in his hipster stoner way, makes you wonder where the simulated and actual realities collide? Or is there even such a thing as simulated space? What if it's some strange suspended plane of reality? Whoa. In the end, he says you and your friends are welcome to investigate the Flowey situation further if you would like. What do you want to do? Sadly, no one really investigated that particular situation. Someone did talk to Kyle in between the sessions, but it was about grimoires. We'll get into that in a little bit. So all of you, as you are leaving a fun night of school spirit, song, music, dancing, and of course ale, you find a large gathering of students outside of the gymnasium. Most of the students are wearing Year 2 through Year 4 Witherbloom's uniforms. They greet you with the following chant: Draven Crift lies. Draven Crift lies. Draven Crift lies. Many of them are carrying signs with phrases like, Valentine did nothing wrong, Crift the thug. And one of them held up a poster with a portrait of Alicia, and under the portrait, a single word was written: witch. Now naturally, this little bit about Alicia I put in specifically to motivate the character Derek into continuing where the Magnificent 12 left off with their Valentine research. Clearly, there's some people on campus who think that the whole Draven Crift thing is a bunch of baloney, and it's a conspiracy, and that Valentine did nothing wrong. Okay? Now, I made sure to tell everybody, no, this backstory that I'm telling you is 100% true. Everything that I told you happened, all right? There's no reason to doubt that. It's very well known. You would have to be a conspiracy theorist to think that somehow Valentine was a good guy and did nothing wrong, okay? The thing is that one of the parallels to this story in our real world is that no matter how much evidence you give somebody that the truth is the truth, here's the truth, not everyone's going to accept it. And I had to make that very clear near the beginning before they begin engaging with certain students who may or may not be so inclined as to assisting or facilitating help in terms of learning more about Valentine, Draven Crift, and what happened in the year prior. So it's a neat way to kind of get people motivated that, hey, this is still a thing. There's still a mystery here. There's people who are convinced that Valentine was a good guy, I suppose. And that should lead to interesting investigations in our future. Interesting. Now, after the pep rally, you all return to the dorm with your class schedules in hand. And I gave them their class schedules after that. Then after that, this is where things get a little bit more fun. I started contacting the players one by one, sometimes multiple at the same time, with various plot hooks that were basically sourced from their daily activities. All of our players have a job. All of our players have extracurricular activities, save for one. Well, no, he joined one. He's going to join one in session 2, so he is getting one. All of our players have different interests and things that they'd like to pursue. And based on what they're doing with their extracurriculars or their jobs or anything like that, I tell them, hey, while you were participating in the Dragon's Guard Historical Society Club, right, you overheard this rumor. And then as you were walking out of the club room, there were some students who seemed a bit panicked. And they were having a hushed conversation. Do you want to listen? And, you know, they'll try to listen. And this then starts erupting into all sorts of fun roleplay as they fail their stealth checks, but yet somehow try to continue weaseling their way to get that information. It's always fun. But basically, they're hearing rumors, and there's a plot afoot, and there's people talking about it, but it's all kind of hush. And all of our players are being introduced to these plot hooks via DMs from me. Once they get information or they track down some knowledge or explore a plot hook, I tell them, now that you've learned what you learned, share what you learned with your fellow adventurers so that everybody's on the same page. And I told everybody, if it's in the bulletin board, your character knows about it. and this is very important when you do a West Marches styled game, is that you need your players to share what they are learning as soon as possible so that other players have the opportunity to continue the investigation. I tell everybody that you don't have to continue exploring the plot hook that I introduced to you. If your character's not interested in it, there is nothing compelling them to continue that investigation. You can go investigate something else if you'd like. That's fine. Just as long as you share what knowledge you have, we're good to go. Because someone else might pick up that investigation. I don't know. But you're not forced to, track down the plot hook that I specifically gave you. Just what you got, share it, and then what would you like to do from there? That's sort of the rule that we like to give everybody. So we'll go through what our players posted in the bulletin board. So we'll start with Cadence. Hey new friends, Cadence here. Just a quick note to let you know that there have been some thefts in the other dormitories. Frowny face. From what I can tell, it's mostly shiny, sparkly things that are going missing. So it's kind of impacting those who are more inclined to own things like jewelry and that kind of stuff. Keep an eye on your personal items and an ear out for any rumblings about the possible whereabouts of people's stuff. There's some pretty upset students at the moment, so if we can help, we should. Cadence. Goober replies quickly, Goober didn't do it. Love Goober. Derek, to segue off of what Cadence has said, while out to work, I noticed that I was missing some tools from my toolbox. All the tools were made from precious metals like gold, silver, and titanium. The activity's overseer, Nora Ann Wu, which I never described her as an overseer. Maybe I did, I can't remember, but Derek's running with it. Says that I'm the only one to ever check out that toolbox. That's not true. I said he was the last one to check it out and is now charging me 175 gold pieces for my missing tools. So then we go on. Goober, he says, anyone know anything about shipment not showing up? Goober boss not getting moonshine shipment. But Goober think that makes sense. No water here for ship to show up. I love Goober. Goober's great. So in this particular case, some items were supposed to be shipped to the Bow's End Tavern where Goober works. Goober works at the Bow's End Tavern. And the boss is complaining about not having his moonshine shipment show up over the last 2 weeks. Interesting. So Goober's saying, hey, anybody hear about this? Then here comes on Kira. Hi all, I have a meeting scheduled with Professor Halden Hu, tomorrow at 12 p.m. He was present for the fight that Goober, Ardberth, Taylor, and I were in, but he didn't stop the fight and didn't seem to know it was even happening right in front of him. I want to ask some questions about this, but wanted to see if anyone else wanted to join. It shouldn't take too long. Now, I'm a little surprised that Kira was so light on the details here. She left a lot out of what happened. So in her class, this is her basic alchemical reactions class with Halden Hu. Halden Hu is an instructor. He's not a professor. He's an instructor, so he lacks tenure. Teaches a very strange class where he essentially leaves it to be very freeform. He tells the students to create certain alchemical reactions, but gives little to no foundational theory as to how to do it. He basically tells everybody that results are results and that you can't doubt results. And so mix stuff together till you get to the desired result. And so that class is very freeform. They're literally just sitting there mixing stuff and trying to figure it out. Practical experience and knowledge is great. Apparently, Goober excels in that kind of classroom environment. However, there was something strange about Halden Hu. Halden Hu did something very strange. And that is that he normally doesn't take the role. He normally doesn't take the role at all. One day, he shows up to class and he decides to take roll. And he reads off the names, and people are like, here, 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 here. And then he gets to Kira Wiles. She says here. And then he stops taking roll. Even though there were a few students whose names were not yet called. And then he goes on about taking his class normally. Another interesting thing was that when Kira responded by saying that she raises her hand because she wanted to wonder, she recognized him as the teacher, Halden who was at the fight but didn't interfere or stop it in any way. She wanted to set up a meeting to talk to him about that. So she asked about his office hours, and when she asked him, when he would normally not approach a student, but rather just talk to them at range, right? He actually does approach her. And he tells her about his office hours. And she says, okay. Now, Goober had an exceptionally high insight check against Halden Who. Goober learned that Halden Who seems exceptionally interested in Kira in a way that might be more of he's attracted to her for some strange reason. We'll come back to that later. So I don't know why all that detail was missing. That was actually really important detail for our players, but it didn't get in there. Reminder to players, guys. What did Ravencrypt tell you all? There is no such thing as a clue too small, and there's no such thing as coincidence. Might want to report the full thing. Just want to throw that out there. Very important. The next thing is that I wanted our players to know that the option to play Mage Tower was out there. We have certain rules for our Mage Tower thing. We're doing it a bit differently than what the Strixhaven book tells us to do it. In fact, we're doing it incredibly different. In fact, I threw out the book in terms of how to run Mage Tower because it was, quite frankly, bad. So I just threw it out. It was bad. So we're going to do it my way. We're going to do it in basically sort of a format where you'll have a tryout, then you'll have practice, then you'll play 2 games, semifinals, finals, if you win your games and things work out for you. So nice. So we do it more as a seasonal thing as opposed to like a once every 3 years thing. It's weird. All right, moving on. Turk is next, and he says, hello, friends. Today, Turk learned, or maybe overheard, that Dean of the Root, Lizette, not seen on campus since year started, but Turk also hear that loud, distraught noises come from Root Dean's room ever since Valentine's crimes were discovered. Ooh, sounds like the Dean of the Root, Lizette, is sad. Very sad for some reason. Taylor Tolley says, while maintaining the lawn on the campus Central Park, I noticed several students coming from the woods. I approached them and noticed that they had cuts, bruises, and welts. I tried to figure out more, but they ignored me. How rude. Still, I'm going to find someone who may be able to help them. Okay, cool. So Taylor Tolley is interested in helping these kids who are coming out of the woods bruised and banged up for some reason. Then Kira comes back. Kira told me that she wanted to read through Ravencryft's notes. I had 3 players tell me that, so all 3 of those players got notes from Ravencryft. This is one of those notes. I discovered an interesting note while reading through the documents from Ravencryft's Magnificent 12. A lost power. Recently, I've been studying grimoires on campus. I've managed to locate a few, tucked away in various odds and ends on campus. Everything was fine, until just recently. Suddenly, the ink has vanished from their pages. Entire personalities were silenced. I could only imagine what kind of power could be at work to have all of the pages of these tomes go blank. Perhaps this is worthy of investigation. Jules Crenshaw. So now we're introduced to a new member of the Magnificent 12, Jules Crenshaw. Okay. Kira then says, does anyone know anything about grimoires or why or how they would lose their magic? Phoebus then, replying to Taylor Tolley, so this is about the kids coming out of the woods with cuts and bruises. He says, I saw the same thing. I was able to get pretty close to the place they were coming from. It seems like an arena. There were some weapons, a stage and a stable behind the stage. The weapons looked like they were used, but I couldn't make out anything in the stable. I think we should talk more about this, maybe even investigate more. Then Balai gets involved. Balai's investigation was incredibly in-depth and detailed. And by the way, I both love, adore, and loathe this player. Anyways, Stormsword says, while I was participating in the Dragon Guard Historical Society over at the Lorehold campus, I heard several rumors about magical grimoires losing their power. I then encountered a group of fourth-year students who were nervously pacing back and forth in a long corridor. I tried to listen stealthily, but it is very hard in chainmail. They noticed me and took off, but I did manage to catch that magical power seems to be accumulating somewhere below the Lorehold campus. I went to the Biblioplex to research magical siphoning and checked out a few books for us to read and look into. My research found this. The behavior I heard from the rumor seems to be describing magical siphoning. Magical siphoning is an incredibly powerful magic and is very, very rare. A magic siphon is an item that drains magical energy from existing spell effects, rendering them powerless and ineffective, in the same manner that dispel magic would. However, the magic itself is drawn to the siphon to be used as the wielder intends. Notes to add after closer investigation, checkout card for leeching magic defense against siphons. This is where I love Balai. When I gave him leeching magic defense against siphons, one, I had to kind of make up the book, and I had to make up some things that he would have read from said book. Awesome. Cool. I don't mind that. I actually think it's neat when my players say, hey, I want to read a book. And typically the way I view these books is that these books are about practical magics, foundations of magic, history of magic, or even theoretical application of magic. They're not spell books. None of these books are spell books. You're not going to read one and suddenly have a spell. Eureka! No. That's a wizard spell book. If you want a wizard spell book, you might want to go talk to a wizard. They have spell books. The library does not. And the library is talking about foundations of magic and things like that. So I like to express these books as such, talking about principles and foundations of magic, ways you can use magic for defense or for practical purposes. Really cool stuff. So he asked me, he said, hey, the books that I checked out, do they have like the cards inside of the books that tell you who checked them out recently? Or who was the last student to check out that book? And I'm like, dude, what a great question. And what a really dope investigation approach. I said, yeah, dude, it's got a card in there. And I told him, so I'll get back to you in a minute. I got to come up with the names for that card. Well, let's go take a look at the names from the card. Now, they figured this riddle out, so I'll describe the whole thing in my thought process in putting this card together for them. But I said this was in order from most recent to least, meaning the top of the list was the last person who checked it out, and the bottom of the list was the first person to check it out. So, most recent to least. Jules Crenshaw. Hey, we know that name, Jules Crenshaw. Kira found a note written by Jules Crenshaw. She was part of the Magnificent 12. So, okay, cool. So she was researching this problem that doesn't seem to have gone away, so they didn't fix it. It was left unsolved. It's still out there. Okay, cool. So we're picking up on an investigation that the Mag 12 left off of. Okay, cool. Let's continue. Then we have Phineas Eleanor Benfield, Esquire. Ishtola Rule, which is a character from Final Fantasy XIV, and Salriverous Quirrell, or Professor Quirrell, from the Philosopher's Stone. Now, Harry Potter. Now, here's the thing. I thought this would be the easiest thing to figure out. Because they're like, we can't talk to Jules Crenshaw because she's graduated, she's off campus. And it's true, she's not there. She is not on campus. They can, however, talk to one other person on this list, but it took them several days, I think about 48 hours, to actually make the connection. You guys might remember a certain character by the name of Fizzy Ben, who played beer pong with our players at the festival. Well, Fizzineus Eleanor Benfield, Esquire, is Fizzy Ben. It took them 48 hours to make that connection. I thought he'd make that connection like that. 2 days, they finally got it. But they never went to go talk to Fizz before their investigation window closed. They have 48 hours to do their investigations, and then after that, it's all right. We'll hold on and wait for the next, session. So they didn't take advantage of that clue because they didn't find out in time, but they did eventually find out. And so I expect to see a Fizzy Ben scenario unfold in one of the sessions that's coming up this week. All right, Bloodry comes in and he says, it would seem that my grimoire is starting to lose stability. In a simulation magic battle. I returned to talk to the student Kyle, who runs the experiment, and he believes that the magic cannot affect anything outside of the simulation zone. Not sure if I believe what Kyle is saying, but I'm moving on to different sources of material. Now, ordinarily, as a West Marches campaign, I am not allowed to correct the players. Ordinarily. Since these guys are all brand new to West Marches, I told them that during session 2, if you come to wildly inappropriate conclusions, I will let you know. But this is the last time I'm doing it. Only this session. You need to pay attention to your sessions and what's going on and read in order to come to appropriate conclusions. This was a wildly inappropriate conclusion. So, session 1C, that's going to be uploaded later today or tomorrow. You'll be able to watch. And basically what happened was that he had a grimoire that could talk to him. And it was a person named Heronium, who's inside this book. He got trapped in the book somehow, and he's not quite sure how, and it's kind of crazy. But he is sort of the mentor to young 15-year-old Archibald. Okay, cool. So Archibald is in a carriage on his way to the school, and about halfway there, they're going through a swamp, and the book starts saying things like, hey, let's play a game with everybody, because he's trying to help Archibald make friends. He was honestly trying to teach Archibald, hey, you should make some friends while you're here. And he solicits a game of I Spy with My Little Eye. They were going through a swamp, and he says, I spy with my little eye. And then Archibald starts playing along, and then everybody in the carriage start playing along. Everybody's playing I Spy with My Little Eye in this carriage. It's awesome. I loved it. And then finally, the last thing Heronium says is, I spy with my little eye a flower. A daisy? A daffodil? A flower. And then it's silenced in a panicked state. Now, this was before they had even arrived on the campus proper. They were on their way to the campus, and that was the last time Heronium spoke to Archibald. And so Archibald thinks, for whatever reason, that his grimoire was losing stability after participating in a simulation magic battle. No, it lost stability before you even got on campus, buddy. So I allowed him to go talk to Kyle about this, and Kyle naturally is quite perturbed because he's telling Archibald, look, our simulation has nothing to do with that. It didn't hurt your book. I'm sorry. And Archibald's getting kind of aggressive with him. And Kyle's just like, dude, look, I have nothing to do with this. Your book should have been fine. It's not the simulation. Maybe it's something else. Archibald at the time wasn't hearing it, but luckily later on he began to realize that the simulation probably had nothing to do with it. And I'm telling everybody now, the simulation had nothing to do with it. This is the last time I'm making a correction of this magnitude. Players, I'm going to warn you now, if you're watching this video, I will not correct you from now on. If you come to wildly inappropriate conclusions, I will not correct you. I will fight my urge to correct you. I will not do it. And if for whatever reason your investigation fails to bear fruits, please don't blame me. Please don't blame me. I had nothing to do with it. All right. Moving on. Storm Sword. While searching through the notes left by Draven's Mag 12, I found this note. The Body Snatcher. Students are still disappearing. We had originally thought the Ripper to be the one who was responsible for all of the missing, but it seems we were wrong. Yes, the brutal murders have stopped, but students and wayward souls are still being plucked from the streets. Adenine recently had a disturbing encounter. She told a story about a man in a thick hooded cloak who chased her down an alley. She managed to make out a few details. The man had black horns and a red forked tail. I haven't done any more research into this yet, but if anyone has any info, it would be greatly appreciated. Then we go back to Turk, who is now responding to a post from Phoebus. So Phoebus and Taylor, they were seeing people come out of the woods all cut up and bruised, and Phoebus himself found it like something like a forest arena with stables and weapons that had been used. It was pretty wild. So Turk goes to the gym because he's actually signing up for the strong man, the strong lifters, iron lifters, Strixhaven Lifter Society extracurricular. So when he went to go to the gym that evening, he says, and while there, he saw an altercation between a dragonborn gym man and LARPers. Yes, Strixhaven has a live-action role-playing extracurricular group. Awesome. Dragon Man tell Turk, many of these LARPers been to gym to land bigger attack rolls. This may be linked to your arena and injured peoples. Interesting. So there's a group of live-action role players who are going to the gym to land bigger attack rolls. That's odd. Then we get to Gothica. Gothica, our ranger player, the only player who actually killed a student on day one. Anyways, my boss has informed me that copious amounts of nitric acid have gone missing from the laboratory in great supply. From what I know, that there are a lot of gnomes who are in a class called Artificers and Tinkering Advanced, who are currently working with nitric acid, but I don't believe they are taking it. Whoever is taking the nitric acid could only do so after hours. The quantity is far too vast to do so during normal working hours. And finally, Derek, he shares a note from Dravencrypt, and this is the note from Dravencrypt that he found. There is a blacksmith on campus who used to be a very jolly and jubilant soul. He would happily craft us different magical items, weapons, tools, and armor. However, his shop suffered a break-in. Since then, the man crafts nothing but common tools and only the weakest of magic items. He is wrathful and angry. He exudes a tremendous magical aura which, quite frankly, scares me. I haven't been back to visit since. Perhaps there is something we can do to help him. Helodius Thurn. Oh, Helodius Thurn. All right, cool. So we got another name for the Magnificent 12. We know Helodius Thurn was one of them. Neat. Back to Gothica. Update. Here's what I know so far. I investigated a lead regarding the correlation between nitric acid, ethyl alcohol, because remember, we have missing alcohol shipments from Bryn, moonshine shipments from Bryn, okay? And precious metals, including the jewelry Cadence mentioned. But unfortunately, after speaking to the alchemy teacher and the gnomes mentioned earlier, they came up to be a dead end regarding the relevance to alcohol. But I did find that the gnomes have been using nitric acid as a solvent to return precious minerals to their base state for use in their current class project by using the precious metals as a means of conducting electricity. They also expressed that they would like to get supplies replenished and that if this continues, they'll have to stop our work, which could have significant consequences. I will be investigating further into the matter and as to what consequences might occur. Interesting. So now we're learning this nitric acid thing might be more important than we think. Ardbirth. This is our Owlin. He works at the Bosun Tavern. He comes in, he says, while working at the Bosun Tavern as the assistant manager, I noticed that we were running dangerously low on moonshine. Our normal shipment from Bryn is nearly 2 weeks overdue, and at the risk of disappointing some of our regular patrons who only come in to drink moonshine, I've offered to head to the nearby town of Bryn to find out what exactly is holding up the shipment. Anyone want to come along for the trip? So now we know we have a party of adventurers who are going to Bryn to find out what's going on with this missing moonshine. All right, interesting. Another note attached below, lower, as for someone of a shorter stature to read, Goober, the boss is giving you the day off to come with me if you so choose. Yes, the boss gave them time off to go and do this mission. Interesting. All right, we're back to Gothica. Adventure time. All right, so after investigating these proclaimed consequences, I've discovered that over the past several years, Strixhaven has been having strange power fluctuations throughout the campus. It has been impacting Quandrix simulations, causing issues in the halls of the Oracle, and all manner of other things. And the power fluctuations have been becoming more frequent and severe. After inquiring about the source of Strixhaven's power, I was informed that Strixhaven's power comes from snarls that stretch over the face of the entire planet, like a network of nodes connected by ley lines and arches. The snarls themselves are not the problem, else Strixhaven would not be in Pangaea. Someone or something is feeding off of our campus's internal network. In other words, something is tapping the lines. But worry not, the Artificers class has been investigating methods to make methods of conducting electricity more efficient, and researching new methods to create a feedback mechanism to help determine where in the lines the drain was coming from as to combat and investigate these issues. But without the nitric acid, they're going to hit a dead end very, very soon. So Gothica had the idea to set up a sting operations after hours at the lab to catch the perpetrator. Good idea. Then we get to Derek. While attempting to follow up on the missing jewelry, so back to the missing campus theft items from the dormitories. Yeah, there's a lot going on, guys. Hoping to find a tie to my missing tools, I was unable to gather any new information. The woman seemed to be less comfortable talking to me, the women. I wonder if Cadence would have more success. Leaving that trail and following another, I ran across a blue light in the hall, but as I approached, whatever was causing it took off. I believe I might have been too loud in my haste. I wonder if Goober would have more success. And then we get to Cadence. Cadence. I'm excited about Cadence. And so I wanted to take you guys into what these one-on-one sessions look like. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into what these sessions look like. I'm excited. So essentially what happens is I tell the players, hey guys, you know, you're in your investigation phase. Tell me what your characters would like to do. So here we are, Cadence, played by Vunis, says, here's a list of things that Cadence would like to do. She said that she wanted Cadence to go to her classes on time and listen out for anything that might be related to things on the board. She wants to check in with her supervisor to see if anything needs doing. Her supervisor was Nora Ann Wu. Send a message to Bree saying that she'd be delighted to join Cheer Squad. And then trying to inquire more about missing dorm items, looking for patterns or such. Also find out if any of the students or faculty can or would be willing to scry for any of the items, if that's possible. To which, when I read that, I was like, wow. I mean, scrying's way beyond their characters now. They can't do it. It's a 5th level spell. This is not something that they would ordinarily be able to do. It's not going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. But it was such a great idea that, in my opinion, a clever DM says, if you really want to scry for this item, maybe we can make that happen. It was a really good idea. I dug it. And I told her as much. I said, I'm digging the scrying angle from your other inquiries. I'm trying to see this way I can make this work. So I let her know. It's like, hey, I like that angle. Let's see if we can make it work. So we continue. Okay, so there was Kian came to visit the dorm. All right. So I went over the list of like, here's all the things you need to know. I even gave her a link to Nora Ann Wu to make sure she had, you know, information about the NPC she would be engaging with. And I went through the checklist and I said, okay. You check in with Nora Ann, but this time is not like the others. She has become flustered beyond what you would have thought possible for her. As you approach Nora Ann, she seems particularly troubled. Her workspace is normally well kept, clean, and organized. But today, numerous items have been scattered across it, some even falling to the floor. Where is it? Where is it? What do you do? I ask, are you okay? What's happened? Nora Ann throws her hands up in frustration. She settles down, defeat written upon her expression. While I'm not sure what good explaining would do at this point. In an effort to calm herself, she looks to a shelf by her work area. She takes a crudely made mug and hands it to you. Ah, there. Giving gifts always makes me feel better. Where to begin? Where to begin? The mug is lopsided and tacky. However, it was made with a sort of whimsical care, which denotes love and kind intentions. Were used in the process of it being crafted. It's made with a certain undeniable charm, more discerning eyes would miss. Oh, this is lovely, thank you, she says sincerely and places it in her bag carefully. But something is clearly up. Why don't you make a cup of tea? Why don't I make you a cup of tea and you could tell me all about it? Nora sighs and begins to weave her tale. Well, you know how things have gone missing of late. It's gotten worse, far worse. It's to the point where students are ending friendships, blaming one another, and I can't for the life of me figure out why they don't realize we're all victims of this. Not a one of us is stealing from each other. Things are going missing because of something. Other. You know? But they don't see it. Nora continues. Well, I get back to my work area, and I was toying with the idea of using gold and silver overglaze on the mugs I wanted to work on. When I went to find the glaze I set aside for today's club meet, I couldn't find it. Gone. It's all gone. Suddenly, I find myself as desperate and upset as everyone else. Not really sure where to turn or what to do at this point. Vunis, or Cadence, she hands Nora a mug of chamomile tea, bidding her to sit. Something other? You mean like ghosts or something? Frowns and sips her tea. Nora's eyes lit up at the mention of ghosts. Her face settles into one of slight fright. Ghosts? You don't think they're ghosts here, do you? Cadence. Poor Derek thought. You thought him culpable, and he was ever so upset. He wants to find the culprits just as much as I and you do. Oh, I mean, well, I don't know. When people say something is other, it always sounds a bit spooky, doesn't it? Sips. What do you think is happening? You more than anyone knows. All the ins and outs of the dorm. Nora sighs. Poor Derek. I hope he isn't shooting the messenger. We're all responsible for lost and misplaced items when we check out utility boxes. I merely conveyed the message given to me by the super. Hopefully he doesn't blame me for it. As for those others, honestly, I think we've little house gremlins running amok. That's what it sounds like to me. I've heard strange reports of blue lights appearing here or there. Occasionally, shadows appearing against the walls. Yeah. Nora's expression grows wide with glee at the thought. We've got gremlins about. That has to be it. I don't think Derek blames you, for what it's worth. I think he's a little delicate and is upset at the thought that people think he's a thief, and I don't think he's particularly well off, you know? So he's worried about money on top of everything else. I don't think he does well with a lot of emotional strain. And as for the gremlins, perhaps we can set traps or a way to track the missing items. Is there such a thing for that in magic? You swear for a moment a light bulb appears briefly over Nora's head as a sudden rush of excitement wells up from within her. Of course! Tracking! Why did I think of this before? We've only just begun practicing scrying in my divinations coursework. I must admit, I'm not well practiced in it. But look at this. She reaches into the drawer of her desk and pulls out something that looks like a highly advanced cog. It's smaller than the size of a penny and is incredibly thin. What it lacks in size, it makes up for in sheer density. It's weighty in the hand and incredibly durable. Do you think this might belong to one of our gremlins? Oh. Well, that's certainly unusual, isn't it? Cadence squints at the cog. It certainly could help us find its owner if that's how scrying works. How fascinating. To be able to find things with magic. Perhaps we'll solve this yet. She beams. Look at us. Such a good team already. Nora smiles. Honestly, I was in such a panic before. You've really inspired me. Speaking of inspiration. She notes the presence of your instrument. Would you mind inspiring me with a song while I prepare my focus? It would be my distinct pleasure. She leaps out of her seat and deftly pulls her lyre from her back. Something for concentration. Cadence stretches her fingers and gives a little cough and begins to play. Awesome. So now we have Vunis, or Cadence, doing Bardic Inspiration. Now, Bardic Inspiration does not normally work like this, but because this is such a cool idea, and I love this roleplay, I said, you know what? We're going to bend the rules a little bit. Bardic Inspiration is going to raise the DC for the scrying check that our creature that we're casting it on has to beat. Raised it by 2. And then, so yeah, she sent me music. I'm like, no, I was listening to the music while we were doing this. This was fun. Nora prepares a large 1-foot diameter crystal ball for use in her scrying. In her excitement, she willfully pushes everything off of her table, places her crystal ball on the table, and begins her magic. Your Bardic Inspiration, I let her know because we're making rolls here. Your Bardic Inspiration increases the spell save DC the target will have to roll against her for the spell to work. You have a body part, but you have never met the target. The DC modifier is adjusted to 17 as a result of these calculations. I will roll via D&D Beyond to avoid the temptation to fudge the dice, because I really want this to work. And yeah, when I feel incredibly motivated for things to work, I will roll using D&D Beyond, so that way everybody can see my dice and that temptation to fudge goes away. So the roll was a 14. Now the DC was 17. So the creature had to roll to get a 17 total. After modifiers, the roll was 16, one below what it needed to save. Therefore, the spell worked. Vunis was confused at first, was like, sad. No, it worked. It was just enough. Well, she really needed that Bardic Inspiration. This was a saving throw from the creature. The spell worked, but barely. The save was 1 below the DC after modifiers. So ultimate support member, yeah, that's right. All right, so we continue on. A shimmering light appears above the crystal ball and suddenly whisks away. It worked! Quick, follow it! Cadence needed to make an athletics check. The check was very high. I think Cadence hit like a 17 on an acrobatics. 19. With your roll of 19, Cadence successfully navigates the dormitories following the shimmering light. The light flies outside of the dorm and down the street. Though many students, faculty, and passersby are in the way, you successfully navigate the streets. The shimmering light suddenly stops above a storm drain and then slowly descends into the darkness below. Now, Vu asked, am I near the lore hold by any chance? Because she was thinking, is this connected to the Grimoires quest? And nah. Nowhere even remotely close to lore hold. So just to make that very clear, these are not connected. Nora, Anne, eventually catches up with you, panting and out of breath. Where did it go? She didn't do very good in her check. She rolled very low. Oh, bother. Cadence stares into the drain. Nora Ann pauses about the drain, closes her eyes, and senses the location of the orb. The creature is somewhere below here, directly down. It's far, far beneath where we are. Nora Ann takes a big gulp. Cadence, I'm sorry, I'm... Seems afraid to make a certain admission. Cadence sees Nora is agitated and tries to soothe her. It's okay, Nora, everything's okay. We're going to figure it out together. Holds Nora's hand. We could do this for us, for our friends, for the school, okay? Nora shakes her head and frowns. I'm claustrophobic, and I'm deathly afraid of the dark. I can't go down there. Maybe you and Derek or someone else can go check it out, but I can't. Oh, Nora, it's okay. You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to. Let's see if we can find some plans or a map or some blueprints. And yes, Derek and I will look into it. You've been magnificent. You know that? Cadence is so sweet. I love Cadence so much. Your scrying is incredible. I'm so proud of you. Nora's expression calms briefly. You really think so? Thank you. Thank you so much. We have blueprints of the dormitories in the office. That should get you started. Once you obtain the blueprints, you have received all of the clues possible for this particular adventure. To proceed any further will require a session. However, pay attention to this next bit, because there is just one more clue, and in particular someone who might be able to shed some light on it. Of course, Voda's picked up that I said that the cog was a body part. I was just explaining how I was calculating the DC, and they had a body part, so that slipped. Whoops. Back at the office, Nora and Cadence began poring over the blueprints. Here, take this. Nora hands you the cog, the object of her scrying. She whispers a soft incantation, transferring the divinations of her magic to you. You now become keenly aware of where the orb is, deep, deep under the surface of the ground. The scrying would not have worked if this cog wasn't either a deeply personal object belonging to our gremlin, or even one of our gremlin's body parts. So I did let her know, officially. But the workmanship on this cog is completely foreign to me. I've never seen anything like it, and trust me, I've seen a construct or two. This isn't anything like what I'm used to. Cadence nods and scribbles a note for herself about all the new terminology she's learned, understood, and thank you for your help today, Nora. You're a credit to the school, and I'm so glad that you're my supervisor while I learn the ropes. I feel like I really lucked out. And thank you for the mug. I adore it. Very sweet roleplay that we had here. So this led to this bulletin board post. Hey friends, I spoke to Nora Ann. She's the senior resident assistant at the dormitories and kind of my supervisor. Anyway, I went to go check in for work and stuff, and her studio was a certified mess, which is totally not normal. Turns out she's had a bunch of stuff stolen now too, specifically some gold and silver pottery glazes. She says students are now blaming each other, ending friendship over the thefts and all sorts. Not cool. We talked, and it turns out you can track things with magic. Nora found this weird ornate cog she's never seen before, and she doesn't know much about constructs. That's not true. So this is one of those cases where a player comes to a conclusion that is inappropriate. This one I did not correct. You guys just got done hearing me read that she knows her way around constructs. She said, trust me, I've seen constructs. This is not, I don't know what this is. So Nora is familiar with constructs, but she does know about constructs. She knows constructs very well. This is why this cog in particular is so weird. So very interesting. But I helped her scry with it, tracking magic, and we found that creature is living in the sewers beneath the dorms. I've now got some blueprints of the dormitories and the spelled cog, which gives me a sense of where the creature it belongs to is roughly. I appreciate any help in A, finding out what this cog could belong to, and B, mounting an expedition to get everyone's stuff back. P.S. Derek, Nora Ann knows she didn't steal the tools, and she's sorry she upset you, but her supervisor told her she had to tell you what the policy is around tools and stuff. She She hopes that you don't think it's mean and that you'll forgive her. We're totally going to get them back, so don't worry. Meanwhile, we go back to Goober. Goober heard things at work. Someone said that people not even sending the ships from Bryn, and they've been forgetting who they are. And not just the moon juices, but other stuffs too. So maybe it not robbers? You think maybe they forget like Durgle forget? Goober think maybe we should go look for more uploading orcs and forgetting peoples there. Interesting. So Goober thinks that these people who are losing their memories in Bryn are forgetting who they are or becoming something different. Reminds him of Durgle, because Durgle forgot what happened when he left Bryn to go to school. Something happened to him and he was a different person and was a bully, and it was weird. So Goober think we should go look for more uploading orcs. Interesting. Meanwhile, Kira, who is a Pangaean native, it's worth noting this before I read what I'm getting ready to read. Because Cadence shared the cog in the bulletin board, I prompted Kira to make a history check. She rolled a 24. So needless to say, Kira knows exactly what this cog is. That cog is definitely from an Illumin. Natives of Pangaea. They are very powerful magically, even by Pangaean standards. They use the constructs to interact with the world around them, but they themselves are more of a viscous soul liquid trapped in a vessel. I'm not sure what they're doing on campus or how they even discovered Strixhaven. They only speak Celestial, so someone that knows Celestial wouldn't need to go with you. Otherwise, you wouldn't get very far in the investigation. Celestial is my native language, being that I'm from Pangaea. Then Kira has another update. After all my studies, I forgot to mention that I had a chat with Durgle soon after classes began. He mentioned that he started remembering things after the pep rally. With the memories slowly coming back to him, he went to a party in Bryn the night before orientation. The others that were with him during our fight invited him. He said that while he was at the party, he started to feel different, not himself, and that he had an urge to fight, which he never had before. He's very much like Goober, in that he's typically picked on, but never lashes out. I don't have any reason not to believe him. He also mentioned that the others are slowly getting their memories back as well. The halfling was very upset to find out that he had stabbed Goober. However, he doesn't know where the party was at. It was his first time in a big city, so it was a maze to him. When I saw Goober's most recent post about Bryn, it reminded me of my conversation with Durgle. So she is connecting the dots that something happened in Bryn where people started acting out, and when they snap out of it, they forget what happened. Interesting. Ardberth pokes his head out of his room and looks around before posting another note to the board. After having a brief conversation with Mr. Who, that's right, the teacher we talked about near the beginning, who was calling roll and called on Kira Wiles, but then didn't finish roll afterwards. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. In this story, we finally get to pick up on it. They had a brief conversation with Mr. Who, the teacher who simply stood by while Kira, Goober, Taylor, and myself were being attacked by Durgle and his goons. He concurred with my theory about the orc's explosion being the result of an alchemical reaction akin to the way the soldiers of the evil dragon, who ruled my homeland of Dominaria, would consume a tincture to explode upon death and cause massive damage to enemy armies. He does not, however, believe that such an agent was introduced into the food or drink at the festival, which can only mean it was consumed prior coming to Strixhaven. There may be forces outside this campus colluding with whomever is orchestrating all these strange happenings on campus. Then we get to Derek. Derek hesitantly posts a note. I've taken some time to consider this, but I do believe a visit to the local blacksmith merits doing. This is the blacksmith who scared the old Mag-12, the guy who was robbed. That's who he's talking about. His crafting of magical items was supposed to be top-notch until a break-in changed his entire demeanor, and his quality declined. The original Magnificent 12 were terrified of his aura and power after the break-in, but believed he could be helped still. I also believe this merits investigation, as it was not only the wish of the 12, but having a blacksmith on our side could only be a benefit. I would desire help before pursuing this. I don't believe it should interfere with other planned events, and it doesn't. This is our bonus session, the Forge of ? We'll find out on Monday at 7 o'clock p.m. We'll find out who this forge belongs to. But we're super stoked because this is a bonus session. Up to 6 players may embark upon the bonus session. We're going to get 6 players for this, and they're going to go talk to the blacksmith on Monday. I'm stoked. Meanwhile, Bray finally decides that he wants to share his notes. While working at the Bow's End, the boss informed me of an incident where he wasn't getting his moonshine delivery. And as being a server there, I kept an ear out for any information. What I found was this. Apparently, moonshine isn't the only good to stop being shipped. Several textiles and other material goods are also suffering from supply shortages on campus due to goods not being shipped. One resident of Bren, who was visiting the tavern, remarks that a few of his friends have started acting strangely, like they've forgotten who they are. Finally, you hear specifically that several shipments of goods are missing. It isn't that the road is unsafe or that the goods are being stolen, they just aren't being shipped in the first place. I hope this helps. We get a few more notes here, and we're almost towards the end of our investigation. This is an hour and 10 minutes long. A lot happened, guys, between the sessions. A lot. 12 players exploring this world, learning things. These are going to be long. I tried to find Dean Lizette's room, but was unsuccessful. None of the Winterbloom staff wanted to help me. I decided to see if Professor Willowdusk would help me. Unfortunately, that didn't happen either. However, Professor Willowdusk informed me that Dean Lizette is and has always been safe and sound in her chambers. However, she is experiencing some type of despair and will recover eventually. That may explain the noises coming from her chambers. Professor Willowdusk was tight-barked regarding any further information. Willowdusk is a dryad, and I love that Lee played into that. So dope. Lee's a phenomenal role player. I've enjoyed it working with him. It's been fun. Stormsword comes in. While reading about magic siphoning, I found this in the foreword of a book, but could not understand the rest. Some assistance would be welcome. Now, this book is highly technical, and I made it super wordy, more wordy than it ought to be. Like any proper technical book written by some snooty engineer, it would be stupid overcomplicated. And that's exactly how I wrote this book. So allow me a moment to read it. Magical siphoning is often thought of as a forbidden and chaotic patchwork of curses designed to absorb copious amounts of mana for reasons known only to the wielder. Your typical rank-and-file mage would struggle under the weight of such mana, and as such, novice to even intermediate mages require the use of mechanical contraptions, manipulated planes of existence, and even regulators to even wield such vast quantities of arcana. The purpose of this book is to instruct the mage in magical means of intervention as such heinous magic. However, mastery is difficult. Should the reader find themselves completely lost and unable to master the highly complicated techniques housed within, one need only remember that more practical resistance would be in order. Smash the machine. It's honestly as simple as that. However, if the assailant is working their magic by their own power, and you are unable to tap into the knowledge presented in this book, be warned. Run. And then naturally, as we get to the warning, it becomes simple. If you can't understand this, run. I thought that was a cool touch. Then we continue on. Belly throws up a note addressed to everyone. He wants help reading the book. Now, it's not a spell book. You're not going to learn a spell from this, and I tried to make sure that was super well known. You're not going to learn a spell by reading the book. This is about practical application and magical theory. It's not a spell book. It is not a wizard spell book. None of the books you check out from the library will be wizard spell books. It's just not happening. Just want to make sure that's clear to everybody. But let's continue. Archibald finds the following passage interesting and understands the concepts. So Archibald read it. He rolled really high in his Arcana, and he understands something. Now, this is going to play into our adventure on Sunday, so I'm excited to see how it goes. Targeted siphoning, geolocation, and direction finding. A mage, either through his own power and prowess, or by means of a contraption, would potentially be able to maintain a long-term siphoning effect over a large area, targeting a specific type of magic, stretching on even miles from its epicenter. In such cases, it can prove difficult to pinpoint the contraption. However, if you've reason to suspect a potential location and wish to pinpoint more accurately where mana is being drawn to, it is possible to attune 3 different astral planar beacons, positioning them as a triangle, 3 points, around the suspected target location. Though 'tis no simple task to attune the particular targeted magic onto the planar beacons, should you manage to do so, you can capture a line of bearing by analyzing from which direction the magic was siphoned. An astute mage would weave in feedback loops onto their patterns so as to illuminate the path with which it took. Do this to all 3 planar beacons, drawing your lines of bearing upon a map, and you'll be able to pinpoint the precise location of the contraption on a flat plane. Should verticality become an issue, sadly, this is where the method lacks. However, having narrowed down a location to a specific coordinate should significantly aid in discovering the source of the siphon. Essentially, they were just told about geolocation. Like when you hear a signal and you have a transmitter that is capable of determining where that signal came from, that transmitter can basically say that signal came from somewhere over here, and it creates a line of bearing. So essentially, if you set up 3 transmitters around a signal, and then they all say, hey, I heard the signal, and it's coming from over here, you can triangulate the exact location of the emitter, right, that's sending the signal, and that the receiver is picking up on. And that's called geolocation. It's basically direction finding 101. I basically said, hey, you can use magic to direction find on this in a very wordy way. I wonder what our players will do when they go try to investigate this even further. And guys, that takes us to the end of our Between the Sessions. There was some other stuff I wanted to read, but this video is already 1 hour and 15 minutes long. As you can see very clearly, our players took to getting into their personal one-on-one investigations very well. Most of them had some really big adventures. Others are still learning, and other people have time restraints, and they're not used to the idea or concept of West Marches. But now that we've had all of that investigation, we have 3 plot hooks that these players are actually going to follow. Now, you might have noticed, I mentioned about 8. There were 8 adventures these players could have gone on, but did not. They only are able to participate in 3. And I told them to be very careful about what adventures you embark upon, because though you might solve that problem, the other problems still exist, and if allowed to persist and worsen and grow bigger, you can run into some interesting scenarios where now the plot hook you did not address gets worse or impacts the world in one way or another. So they're only able to tackle 3 of the 8 potential plot hooks they were given. Those 3 plot hooks they're tackling are the Illumin Thief, That was the campus break-ins with Nora and Wu. The Bryn missing alcohol adventure. They're going to go to Bryn and find out what's going on with the shipments and why they're not leaving Bryn. So we have an adventure going to Bryn. And then the third adventure they'll be going on is the missing, the lost power, the grimoires that are losing their power. They're going to be investigating that. Then we have a bonus session on Monday that is going to basically be about visiting the blacksmith and seeing what he needs. Now, here's the cool thing about the bonus session is that helping the blacksmith is something they can do every week as a bonus session. They could do it every week as a bonus session to help the blacksmith. As you guys might have figured or realized based on the note, this is their avenue for magical items and weapons and cool stuff. So definitely worth tuning in to see how we're handling that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And there you have it, guys. That's between the sessions, between sessions 1 and 2. And yeah, guys, this is getting a little nutty, y'all. This is getting a little nutty. I'm excited. I can't wait to see how it goes. And in the meantime, guys, I got to get ready for tonight's session. You guys can tune in tonight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. As we join Cadence, Kira, Phoebus, and Turk in investigating the campus thefts by our Illumin thief. We'll see how it goes. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and like and do all that crazy stuff. I don't know. I don't like advertising it, but hey, let me know you like the content. I'm going to make it whether you like it or not. It's your thing, but yeah. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys next time.